Greetings and salutations. Welcome to this episode of Playwright Spotlight. Before we begin, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below, and share this show with your friends. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, be sure to leave a 5-star review and subscribe to the channel. And if you've been listening over the last few episodes, you'll know that I was accepting submissions for Play Noir. Unfortunately, that deadline has passed, so you're going to have to wait till next season. However, you can still pick up a copy of Play Noir Anthology, 41 film noir styled one-act plays written by playwrights like you from around the world. You get your copy at Amazon, BarnesNoble.com, or Walmart.com. My guest today is a theater professional from the Philippines whose body of work has granted him permanent residency status in the U.S. as an alien of extraordinary ability and achievement. He has penned a dozen original librettos, most of which have been successfully produced throughout the U.S. and in his home country. Titles include Breakups and Breakdowns, After, Ever After, Guadalupe the Musical, and Fairy Tale Rescue, to name but a few. He's also written more than 100 short plays, and his latest musical, created with composer Luke Simnett, is the two-person comedy A Tale of Two, based on A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens, which premiered in London in July 2024. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Joel Trinidad. Thanks for coming on, Joel.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for submitting. So on that note, Joel submitted to Play Noir. I thought his background was quite intriguing, so I asked him to come on. So I want to start there. I want to start how I noticed you had a ton of acting work in your bio as well.
Yes.
So is that the artistry that got you here, or was it?
Yes, actually.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, how does that work? And how do you get permanent residency from artistry?
Right. Well, I started out as an actor about 30 years ago. I was a kid when I started in the Philippines, and it was just it looked. My dad is an actor.
Okay.
He started in theater. He's doing film now, and growing up, it always looked like fun. So I just sort of fell into it, and I enjoyed it a lot, and I started doing it professionally. And after a while, I started thinking, because I would always write. I was always fond of writing.
Okay.
So years, etc. Even as a kid, I would write these space adventure stories and stuff like that. And so I started to think, what if I wrote a play? Well, actually, what I thought is, why don't I write a musical? Because at the time, I was too stupid to know that it was hard. I didn't know what I didn't know. So in my head, it was like, how hard could it be? Oh, it's really, really hard. But I didn't know that. So I just sort of did it and worked on the thing. Breakups and Breakdowns, you mentioned it. That was the first one I wrote. And I started writing that. And, it took years to sort of get into some.
How old were you at this point when you first started writing?
I'd say I was in my late 20s, maybe my early 30s.
Okay.
And so I did that, and I did a small kind of backers audition for it. And I fully expected that when producers saw my work, like snippets of my work, they would start flinging money at me. And that didn't happen. So I started a small production company of my own, a very, very small one. And because I had a production company, I had an outlet for my work. So I could write, small shows let's say I did shows in like bars, small short plays, like 5 or 6 short plays back to back to back in a bar, that kind of thing. And the production outfit helped me with that. But through all of that, I was still an actor, and I still am an actor. I think I'm primarily an actor.
Okay.
But I write as well now.
How has your acting transformed your writing, or how's it affected your writing?
Oh, that's a great question. I think it's very, very useful for actors in general to write plays, because an actor would know. I would say an actor has a unique perspective on dialogue, because they're the ones who are going to have to say the words, right? So as an actor, when I'd write dialogue, I'd test the dialogue myself. That as part of the process of writing. So generally, I like to write. Let's say I have 3 characters in a play. I want them all to speak differently, right? They can't all sound exactly the same. They have to sound like different people. So I would test the words, and as an actor, I'd be like, okay, the way I've written this particular character, he's like this and he's like this, so he would say this, and that would inform the writing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%, 100%. I want to talk about this journey from thinking that producers are going to throw all this money at you, and then So, I mean, how did you? When did you start to find success?
As a
this journey? Yes, yeah. So when you started, when you did breakups and breakdowns, how long did that take, and then where did it go? How did that evolve?
Okay, a few people watched the show, and the show wasn't an enormous success. It was a moderate success in that the production didn't lose money. So
that's a pretty good success right there.
Right? I mean, if you're in theater, you know that's kind of a win already, right? So, but that sort of got me noticed a little bit. People started to it became a little bit more, I would say, it would be a little bit more credible that I was writing stuff because I'd already written something that was produced. Never mind that I produced it myself. Right? That's somebody else produced it. It was like, oh, this show was produced. I saw that. I kind of like that. Or maybe I'll see this one. So counting it as success is a little bit. I think it's possibly it's not the right word because it's always a struggle. It's always been, continues to be a struggle. So it's not like, okay, I've done this, I'm set, right? But I guess is what started things rolling. In fact, in the sense that it also showed me that maybe I myself had something to say as a writer.
Sure.
Right. So it was kind of proof of concept for me as a writer and for, the work on its own.
And where did you stage this? Was this in the US or was this in the Philippines?
No, I only moved to the US a little under 2 years ago.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, small theater called Teatrino in a mall, essentially. It's just like I'd say 150 seater.
Okay.
Maybe even smaller than that. So it was kind of out of whatever what you would call the theater district in the Philippines, in Manila. So it was cheaper, and so that's why I did it there. It's a bit out of the way for theater people to go to, but the people who went happily went. So I'm happy.
So were these in English or were these in?
I primarily write in English.
Okay.
There is Filipino language you would call Tagalog. The official name of the national language is Filipino, but it's really mostly Tagalog modified because there are like 150 languages in the Philippines.
Wow.
So I primarily write in English. I've written some material in Filipino/Tagalog, but this particular material was in English, and I wrote it to be kind of universal. Like you could transpose that, you could take the whole show as it was and do it like whatever in Omaha, and people would still get it. That was the goal.
Sure. Yeah. So how many? Where was I going to go with this? How long so you moved here 2 years ago?
Yeah, August of 2023. Yeah.
What do you find? What's the difference? What do you find the difference in producing in the Philippines and producing in the U.S.?
Oh, well, I've never produced in the U.S.
Okay.
So what I've been doing here as a writer is just submitting my work.
Okay.
To whoever will accept it. I do that quite regularly, and I find that that's one main difference between the U.S. and the Philippines in terms of writers. There are so many outlets here in the U.S. because it's such a massive country, right? So there's always something. And, short play or a musical or, a full-length play, etc. So I have a lot of those things, and I just submit. And I've acquired a very impressive collection of rejection letters. But that's the job, right? So I wouldn't know the first thing about producing here in the U.S. because I don't have a network here.
Right.
I've been in the Philippines over 30 years of being an actor and director and a writer. So while I was there, if I wrote something and I thought it was good, or I wanted to get it on its feet, or like get a reading done or something, I knew more or less who I could contact. Right. So, make a few calls, and it's still a struggle. It was still a struggle, but I was in the network. I knew people, right? Like if I wanted to call up, like we do a press preview of a show, I knew enough press people not to have to hire a publicist. I sort of just contact the press people on my own.
Right.
But here in the US, I don't know anyone. And in a few years, I might know some people who will help me produce, and maybe then I'll think about producing. But for now, I have not produced a show here, and between you and me and whoever's listening, I was never a very good producer back home either. So
Why do you say that?
because I didn't care if I made money or not. I
Well,
just want.
I'm going to push back on that because look, if you make money, that's great. Because a lot of the stuff that Play Noir, that's 7 seasons of film noir, one act plays that I produced. And if I broke even, I'm happy to do it because you can't replace that experience. I think the experience is just as important as the money. So I don't know that being successful means making a profit. I think, you know what I mean?
Being a producer, right? Like,
sure.
And just a producer, it's about the bottom line, isn't it? So I was thinking of it in those terms. I take your point, and that is absolutely valid.
Well, here's the thing. I'll grant you this. I think if you were playing with somebody else's money, that's when you'd want to become when you want to go for the bottom line. When you're playing with your own money, it's like, well, if I lose money, I lose money, So I would say there's a difference in there, but I think that there's a admiration is not the right word that I want, but I mean the fact that this is a topic that comes up on this podcast quite a bit, is like the accessibility of it. And especially when it comes to producing theater, because you have that opportunity to at least make some money back. Whereas if you wrote a short film or even a feature film and you just, good luck even breaking even,
Right.
Most of the time it's going to be a loss unless, you really, and then you got to market it, and, et cetera. So have you produced all the stuff that you've written or that you've produced? Has any of your work been produced by other people, or have you always just self-produced?
A lot of I've been lucky enough to have been commissioned to write musicals. And when I say write musicals, I just mean the librettos. I don't write music. I always
Fair enough.
Composer. So I've been commissioned to write some musicals and some plays. But I'd say maybe I'd say the majority of the stuff that I've written that's been produced has been self-produced, maybe 70%.
So, and I want to go back because when I went off topic and went on that tangent because I lost my train of thought. I wanted to. Why did you start with the musical?
I love musicals. Filipinos, and I'm generalizing here, we love music. So even the entertainment we consume back home, a musical, I think it's the same here in the US actually, where musicals will make considerably more money, will be considerably more popular than plays. So that old axiom, write what you know, or write what I like to write what I would like to watch.
Sure. Okay.
That's why because my dad is started as a musical theater actor. So, that's why I focused on that primarily, or at least started with musicals.
What's the difference in approach when you sit down to write a musical and when you sit down to write a play? What's your approach? How do you?
For the play, it's essentially I think of it in terms of scenes. Well, yeah, like generally I have like some kind of theme, like I'll have some kind of insight, and then write around it. And that is, I wouldn't say easier, but it's it's just me. So I don't. It's there's less coordination and there's less scheduling and all that stuff. So in that sense, it's easier because it's just me behind the desk on my computer. For a musical, I have to have a collaborator, right? And since I don't write music, the way I approach musicals is I'll think of it starts also with a theme, but then I will generally map out the story. I outline the story, and you'll see in the story, if you've seen enough musical theater, you'll know there's a structure to it, right? So
Sure.
there'll be a song here at this point in the journey of the characters. All the emotional high points, you sort of mark them out, and I write, I'd say, placeholder titles for something. Like if I know the character in this moment, at this point in the story, is needs to do this, then I'll think of a theme for that song, a lyrical hook, and then write around that. And so generally, what happens is I outline the thing, find out where the songs go in the outline, assign titles to those songs, and then write the songs. So once the songs are done, I do the dialogue, the book scenes that stitch the songs together. And usually at that point is when I start, in the middle of that process, usually towards the end, is when I involve a collaborator, a composer. And then, obviously it's a collaboration, as I say. So it's, there's a lot of back and forth. The composer will say, maybe we don't need a song here, or maybe these two songs can be combined, or maybe we need an extra song here. And then it goes back and forth. But generally, when I approach a composer, there's already a structure. There's already something that we can discuss.
Right. So you write all the songs first. You don't start writing the story and then like, oh, here, I think it's time for a song.
Sometimes it works out that way, but most of the time it's songs first, because I just find it easier that way, because the songs will have all the big emotions and all the important plot and character points, and then the dialogue scenes are just a way to link them all together and make the whole story. I don't know if that's the correct way to do it. That's the way I usually do it.
Well, I don't know if there's a correct way to write a play in general. I think that everybody is going to have their own approach. I'm more linear, at least with my playwriting. When it comes to screenwriting, I might know the scene. I know what's happening here. Because when I first started writing my first one, I wrote basically to music, and I kind of had the soundtrack, and I'm like, I know what's happening in the scene. I need to write. This is the scene I'm going to write now. And then it's like, okay, now how do I get here? And that's how I approach the first one. So I don't think there's a correct way. Sometimes people know the end, and they just don't know how to get there. Or sometimes they know the middle. So let's go a Tale of Two. And that premiered in London. Did you produce that as well, or
no? That was just a happy accident, and this is a bit of an old story. So I'll just try to shorten it as much as possible.
Oh, absolutely.
When I was still living in the Philippines and had no plans to move here yet to the US, this is something like 2021 or 2022. No, 2021. I had sent some of my I had been sending my short plays out to various theater companies, and one theater company in New York, they said, okay, this is what we need for our festival, can we use it? I said, sure, but I'm in the Philippines, so I can't direct it, I can't be involved in any way, I can't act in it, I can't do anything. And they said, don't worry about it. They said, don't worry about it, we'll find your director, the director will find actors, and we'll handle it from here, we'll produce it. Okay, the director I got is a very talented man named Bailey Cummings. And so we were, I never at the time I had never met him, and we were corresponding over Zoom. And he was kind enough to show me his process. He involved me in the casting, and he filmed the rehearsals for me to comment on, etc. And so that was that. The festival, I guess, was a success. And then a year later, 2 years later, I was already in New York, and on Facebook, sometimes you'll see posts, composer needing lyricist, that kind of thing. So I generally, if it looks interesting, I'll sort of submit to that. And this one guy, Luke Simnett, responded to my. I responded to his post, and we set up a Zoom, and we seemed to be on the same wavelength creatively. And so we said, okay, so let's work on something. And we're throwing ideas around, and he said, I always wanted to write a musical version of A Tale of Two Cities. He said, the problem with that is it's not, there's very little comic potential in it.
Mhm.
But I haven't read the book. It's something to consider. So that's where we were. But he said, yeah, but it would have to be something. No, what I said was, I think the way to do this is if you have two actors, just two actors playing all the roles. There's already comedy in that. Inherently, it's comedic because you've got funny hat. They're just playing all the roles, so it's silly, right? And then you could call it A Tale of Two. So we were like, oh, that's a great idea. And I'm like, you could do this with a small band, like maybe four or five piece band, two actors in a small theater. And so we were just sort of running with that idea. And so I started writing some lyrics for, just to get it going. Around that same time, I'd say within the same week or maybe the week after, the director who had directed my play in New York, Bailey Cummings, contacted me and said, I'm in London now. I'm doing my MFA, and I need something for my thesis, my thesis in directing. And he proceeded to describe the exact musical that Luke and I had talked about. He wanted something with small, just two or three characters, small band, not a lot of production values, just not a lot of costumes, not a lot of special effects. And I said, "Oh my God, I have exactly the show for you." So suddenly, Luke and I were creating a musical with an actual opening day. It was a one night only thing in a small theater in Camden. And so when you say, my show premiered in London, it sounds a lot more impressive than it actually was, but
It's true.
here. And there, it was an actual show. So that's how that happened. And what we showed, and I never saw the show. I was under contract in Texas at the time as an actor doing Sherwood: The Adventures of Robin Hood. So I couldn't go to London to watch it. And I have still not met Luke Simnett in person.
Oh.
We started collaborating in 2023. And in early 2024. And I still have not met him in person. But the version that we showed in London, in the Camden People's Theatre, they only had something like, Bailey wanted something that was just 30 minutes. So we just showed excerpts of the full show.
Okay.
So we are in the process of expanding it into a full-length musical. And that's where we are.
Very nice. So what was the driving force for you to move to the U.S.?
Oh, okay. As a theater person, I had always dreamt of living and working in the U.S., especially in New York, because that's that's like arguably the seat of world theater, right?
Sure.
And it's either New York City or the West End. Now, my sister has lived in New York for about 26, 27 years. So even before I moved here, I would come to New York every Christmas season. I'd save all my money throughout the year, spend it all, go to New York for 3 weeks in December, watch all the shows, sleep on my sister's couch, and then January 2 or 3, I'd go home with no money and start it all again. I did that for more than 10 years consecutively until COVID. I'd always dreamed of being living and working in New York, and then I got the chance to do that because of this application I applied for this special visa. At the same time, my wife, even before I met her, she had also always dreamed of living and working working in New York, because she's also a theater person. She essentially does everything I do, but better. So and when we met, that was sort of a thing that we talked about it. Yeah, it would be great if we lived in New York, etc. And she's the one who suggested that I apply for this special visa, this special artist visa. And so I applied, and I was able to get the permanent residency through that.
What was that process? What did that entail? Just in case there's anybody else listening that's in other countries that may want to be pursuing that same kind of.
Well, a friend of mine who was a very successful recording artist and actor and singer and all around entertainer in the Philippines had just gone through that herself. So I asked her how to do it, and she said, well, here's my lawyer, you can call my lawyer, and I'm sure you can do it yourself, but I just wanted to know, I didn't want to make any mistakes.
Sure.
So I contacted him, and he said, oh, okay, why don't you send me some documents that kind of that will sort of prove that you will be a boon to the theater community in New York, and that you won't essentially.
You broke up you in New York, and then you said what?
In other words, the government wants to know that you will be going to New York and contributing to the theater industry and not begging in the streets.
Right.
That's essentially it is, right? So the lawyer asked for, articles written about me, souvenir programs from shows I've done, posters, awards, copies of awards I'd received, letters from industry professionals in the U.S. who would vouch for me, who might say that, I've worked with him before and we're actually collaborating on a project now. It would be great if he were in the country. He would be more accessible, etc. So everything I could think of, like copies of recordings that I was a part of. So I sent the lawyer everything, and he took a look at it and he said, I think you have a very good case. Here's what's going to cost. And it was pretty expensive. And I paid for the expedited processing. So it's so I paid for the thing, and we essentially submitted it and waited. And because my wife was, well, we had within that process we got married, and she became eligible for the same visa. So it was, we're waiting, and then you get interviewed, and the interview process is a little bit harrowing, because you go to the U.S. embassy, you can't have your phone, you can't have any gadgets, and they interview you, and you're being interviewed. You're not even sitting down in a room. You're standing at a counter with a glass thing, like in a bank, and they interview you. And all around you, there are people who are getting turned down, and their whole family is in the U.S. and they're desperate to join them, but because of one reason or another, they're rejected. And people are like weeping as they're leaving the counters. It was very, very it was very brutal. And luckily we passed the interview, and so we had my wife and I had some contracts that we had to fulfill in the Philippines and Singapore, so we couldn't leave right away. But we left. We got approval, I think, in April, and we left for the U.S. in August. If we could have left right after approval, we would have, but we'd had to finish the contracts. And like we sold everything. It was like we didn't have any job offers in the States. We didn't have any permanent place to live. I had a few contacts, but not really solid contacts, just the people who had vouched for me. So it was really a big gamble, starting over as a grown man. My wife and I were like, let's just do this. When are we going to do this? When we're like 65 years old? Let's do it now. And let's take a chance. And if it doesn't work, then we can always go back home. So we tried it, and 2 years later, we're still here, we're still alive. So we're doing okay. So I mean, time will tell if we can, because this is very competitive over here. If we can actually thrive. Right now, we're doing okay, and that's about that's the best we could hope for at this point. Yeah.
So you had mentioned that she suggested that you apply. Why didn't she apply? Well, you guys weren't married yet either, so.
Oh, yes. She started theater late,
Okay.
so she credits. I'm older than she is, so I had more credits. By the time she started theater, I had already been kind of established back home. So yeah, so that's the reason.
Got it. Okay. And then she applied later on when she had the credits and she could
No,
apply for the same thing. Or Jordan, could she piggyback off of yours?
yes. In fact, I applied and she didn't have to do anything. She had
Okay.
to be there for the interviews and stuff, and she had to submit stuff, but she did, the same. She had to submit application forms, but she didn't have to prove anything by sending
Got it.
articles or have to do any of that.
And did you have to write like a statement or any
I don't recall.
I don't know, like an artist's purpose kind of thing? I'm just curious if they required you to have to do something.
I don't think I did. It was more getting. It's what I had to do was get other people to vouch for me. So I don't think I wrote any kind of artist statement.
Now when we were going back and forth trying to schedule this, you're in South Dakota.
Yes.
And are you performing there? Is that where? Because you said something about coming to your show. Because I was also in South Dakota, but we were still an hour difference because I guess I didn't realize that South Dakota has 2 different time zones in it. So because I was in Rapid City, so I don't even think I was very close to you guys. So what are you performing? Are you performing there, or is it something you?
Yes, I am. No, I'm performing. I'm doing a production of Romeo and Juliet for the South Dakota Shakespeare Festival.
Oh.
I play Lord Capulet and the Prince. It's like a dual role, and we rehearsed here. We're in Vermilion, South Dakota now. We rehearsed here, and then opened in Vermilion, South Dakota, and then now we're back in. We opened. We rehearsed here in Vermilion. We opened in Brookings, South Dakota. We did 4 shows there, and now we're doing the final 4 shows here in Vermilion, because it's the production is tied to another South Dakota theater company that's out of Brookings. So it's sort of like they work together on this, so that we did the show. We have 2 venues for the show, one here in Vermilion and one in Brookings.
Got it. What has prevented you, or maybe it hasn't prevented you. Maybe have you looked into producing in the States yet? And if
not,
then what's preventing you from doing it?
Well, as I say, it's the network. I don't like, if I produce something, I don't know who would come. Like, nobody knows who I am. Nobody knows what I do. So maybe later on, when my network is larger, I do have some friends who are producers, and I have spoken to them about producing some of my work. But that's just, you just float the idea and you just hope that something takes.
Now, would you produce it like in like off Broadway, or?
It would probably have to be off Broadway. I mean, I don't think I would. It would probably be too ambitious to hope for something bigger than that.
Sure, no, but I'm just wondering if you'd go off Broadway, or if you'd go like somewhere like just even off, where it's just like just a smaller market that's more affordable. Because I mean, when it comes to off Broadway, I don't even know how feasible that is. I don't know if the prices are reasonable.
Even the smallest, most out of the way venue in New York City is super expensive. But yeah, I mean, I'm open to it. It's just because of having done theater for so long back in the Philippines, it would be easy enough to strong arm people to watch.
Well, and
I come see it, or you tell my mom. My mom's friends would watch everything I did in the Philippines.
Sure.
Super supportive. So, but in the US, I don't really have that. So that's one of the reasons I'm hesitating.
Well, I think that one, you gotta start somewhere.
True.
What does this? Do you know what the smaller places run for off Broadway?
I've heard that there the some of the cheaper venues are something like 4,500 dollars a week or something like that. So, but I haven't really looked into it, so I might be wrong. Don't quote me on that.
Sure.
But I come to think of it, maybe I have produced some stuff in the sense that you join a festival sometimes, a short play festival, and they say
Sure.
if your work, you produce it. I've done that.
Okay. Sure.
So that's something, I guess, and it's always tough, as I say, for me to find people to go to the thing because they don't know who I am, they don't know what my work is. But if it's a festival, there are people there anyway, right? So
Yeah,
there
100%.
are
But I mean,
numbers there anyway.
because I mean, you did mention that you've had a series of shorter pieces put together that you
Mhm.
put,
Yeah.
and I think, I mean, it's you're kind of relying on your cast, but that's what the approach we took with Play Noir. I mean, like,
Mhm.
and noir's niche. A lot of people
Mhm.
don't even know what film noir is, let alone noir in general.
Right.
Except for Pinot Noir, which is great. That's fine. Um, they're not familiar with it, and so what
Mhm.
I have had casts anywhere from 10 to 14 people, and
Mhm.
you kind of rely on them and their network to
Yes.
come and see and support their work. So
Yes.
that's kind of what I've always relied on, and that's going to build your network as well. Like if it's like I'm going to put these pieces together, and within these short pieces, I've got 12 to 14 people, and then it's gonna the two of those people are going to be me and my wife,
Mhm.
and then you just hold auditions.
Yeah. I, I've always thought of it. Every time I think of producing, and I do think about it, I always think, no, I can't do it. But maybe I can. Maybe I can.
Well,
I mean, describing it is a risk, but then any kind of business venture is a risk, right? So, I mean, it's certainly something that I can try.
yeah.
The way maybe I can.
Well, I'm just saying that there's ways around it.
Mhm.
There's other things you can do. I mean, it's that $4,500 that's
Mhm.
the hardest. But if you
Yeah.
can, I don't know. There's so many ways around it now. I mean, I'm just saying that, you know, why wait 2 years to build up that network?
Mhm.
Just through chatting it up rather than like taking that leap and building your network on your own rather than
That's that's an excellent
so
point.
so
Yeah.
that's just my suggestions. And there's always there's a for what it's worth, there's a place here that because we just opened our original musical
Mhm.
over at the center where I work, and um everybody's a big fan of Vistaprint. I'm not the biggest fan of Vistaprint. I use a place called
Mhm.
Gotprint, and I think we got 2,500 postcards for like $114 and
Mhm.
good quality stuff as well. So,
Wow.
um, and they ship to New York, you
Right.
fly.
You're Chicago, are you?
I'm
Did
in
you
North
say?
Hollywood.
Oh, sorry, North Hollywood.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's a great thing about Gotprint because they're about 3-4 miles away from me and I can just drive over and
Mhm.
pick them up. So I don't know what
Yeah.
shipping to New York would be, but there's always that. And then depending on where you're located, I'm sure you've seen it. The ticket exchange where you can get
Oh,
discount
yeah.
tickets over there in New York.
Mhm.
I've only seen it once or twice. I
It-
don't remember the name of it.
TKTS.
Yeah, yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Mhm.
When there was a Christmas show that I used to do here in
Mhm.
LA for 11 years and then or 10 years and then we took it to New York. And that's what we did. I mean, like we were just trying to paper the show and try to build up a rapport to where people would know
Mhm.
who we were. So there's ways to do it. TKTS is another TKTS. Yeah. Um, you can always go that route as well because,
Yeah.
somebody might be looking for a, a different show. So
Right. Yeah. That's
I just
straight.
encourage you to do it. You
Thank you. Yeah.
probably better wait than waiting,
Yeah.
waiting for,
Well,
you know,
this whole I don't I've been sort of focusing on just getting my work out there by having somebody else sort of
sure.
say, but then what you're saying is, yeah, why not just do it yourself?
Sure.
So it's certainly something to think about. Or
The
maybe
other approach that I took as well is that since I'm doing different pieces, um, usually we do like 5 or 6, and I'd have somebody in the cast
Mhm.
direct one, So they'd be in what they usually we'd do a large role in one piece, like a main role in one piece, a smaller role in another piece, and then they give somebody the option to direct one of them as well.
That's
So,
great.
and you could go that
Actually,
route, or if you didn't want to go that route, you could just do a call for submission or a call for directors and have outside directors come in as well. And then that way you've got another group of networking that you've done.
Right. Actually, one of the shows I did just before leaving the Philippines was a series of short plays in a bar. We were lucky enough to get this bar that said, "Oh, you can use the place for free. We'll just split the gate." So it's fantastic, right? So I got 4 actors, me included, and we sort of just what we did was one of the actors, a friend of mine, she had the idea that for this business model, we would all produce it, like equally, like 25% share for each of us. So we pooled our money together, we produced the thing, and then we just split the profits. And we all made kind of a lot of money based on, for what little we invested. So maybe I can do that. I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
Do that. So yeah, I guess it's just a shift of focus, because I've just been so focused on submitting, and also auditioning. It's
Right. Sure.
does it. So yeah, maybe this is something I can explore.
Yeah. I want to, and not to pick at a scab or anything like that. Earlier you said you were acquiring a plethora might not have been the word of rejection letters.
Yes.
How do you deal with that?
I've learned to sort of not take it personally, to just sort of, what I do is, every time I submit to something, I have a submission list for every year that I've been here. So, actually, it started when I was still in the Philippines. So it's all numbered, what the name of the theater company is, where they are, like in the world, usually the US, and then when I submitted, and when they submitted, some of them will acknowledge, "Oh, we've received your submission." Then I'll put that date as well. And then the third thing is when it's been declined or accepted. So I have that as a document, and I just sort of submit and forget about it. Even when I audition, that's it. You audition and you forget about it.
Yeah.
So that when somebody says, "Oh, sorry, we declined this," I'm like, "Okay, I had forgotten I submitted to you." But if it's accepted, then it's great. So my numbers are not great, but out of, I'd say, 40 submissions, I'll get 1 or 2. That's not bad. That's not nothing. And on the document, I make sure to highlight the ones that are accepted in blue, so you can see right away, "Oh, I got 2. I got 3 last year," that kind of thing.
Sure.
The short answer is, how do I deal with it? I just forget about it. And if somebody gets back to me, it's a bonus.
Okay. Do you always receive a rejection letter, or is it just do they not reach out and they just?
I'd say about half the time, a little bit more than half the time, they just don't reply.
Where are you finding your opportunities?
There is a very, very useful, I think it's a website. Yeah, it's a website called nycplaywrights.org.
Okay.
And it aggregates all of the submission requests all over the US, sometimes Canada, sometimes the UK, sometimes Australia. All the submission requests for all the theater companies that are looking, right? And one of the things that's great about this site is it only shows you the stuff, the companies that are not asking for a submission fee. Because I know that there's some people out there who are like, if it's a submission fee, forget it. I'm not doing that.
Sure.
And I don't want to do that. So, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's just, that's my personal thing. If I have to pay to submit, then I'll just submit somewhere else.
Sure.
So nycplaywrights.org is just the submissions without a fee. And it's updated. I don't know how regularly, but you just go there. What I would do before was maybe once a month, I just go to that site and then submit, right? Because not everything is going to be something. I mean, like Black Women's Month or whatever, I obviously can't contribute to that, so I'll just not submit. But lately, what I found useful is Facebook, because they have several groups that are that aggregate the submission requests. The one I use most often is Playwrights Submissions. I think if you can wait, I can look for it right now. It might be.
If you want to, yeah. While you look, we with the pay to play, not the pay to play. I think when you're paying for submissions, I think it depends on what you're getting in the end.
Yes.
Because there's some out there where it's like, oh, it's a $25 submission fee, but if we select your play, you get $500.
Right.
Well, that doesn't do anything. Yeah, sure, $500, and my play got picked, but it doesn't do me any good. Where it's like, if it's $10 and I get a 2-week I get a 2-week production.
Yeah,
that's money well spent.
That's true. I mean, I guess right now my policy is if there's a submission fee, I say no. But you're right. I mean, if you you look at the thing and there are other advantages, and there's a sure something, then I guess I'm not completely close to it, but I would think twice.
Yeah, it's so funny. We've had this conversation. This topic has come up a few times in episodes, and the one thing that it's funny when I don't know if it's just playwrights who feel this way, or because screenwriters, they have no qualms. They'll pay to submit their screenplay to a contest.
Oh, okay.
And then your movie's not even going to get produced.
Right.
But playwrights, it's so funny. I'm not going to pay, but even though I could be produced, I'll pay $65 for you to read my screenplay that's not going to get produced. So it's just, I don't know. I don't know if there's an ego or they just, I don't know. It's just so funny.
Just for your followers, the Facebook group that I use is Playwriting Competitions. That's
one more time.
Called.
Playwriting
and competitions.
Playwriting submissions and competitions.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know why.
I don't know why every time you started to say it, the audio would drop. So
I found that very useful. In fact, I find it so useful that I rarely visit playwrights.org anymore. I usually, because the new submission requests will just pop up. Yeah.
Okay.
So, because I'm a member of the group, I get alerts. So.
Sure. Okay. Very nice. And you found that very helpful?
Yes. It was not before I discovered the Facebook group and nycplaywrights.org. I also found another thing useful. It's called Producer Writer Speed Date.
Oh, interesting.
And I believe I don't know if it's a New York phenomenon, but if it's a New York thing, but you apply, you have to pay. It's like $75 or $90 or whatever it is.
Right.
There are like 20 different Broadway, off-Broadway producers, and the company that you pay, they help you refine your pitch. So you have your material, they help you refine your pitch, and then the first time I did it, it was physical. It was they don't do it in real life in person anymore. But when I first joined it, it was like it's literally a room with people in a circle, and then you sit down. You have 1 minute to pitch your idea to the person, and then somebody rings a bell, and you go to the next chair over, and you go through the whole room that way.
Wow!
So that was very, very useful. From that, I found a contact who produced my first short play in the U.S. that wasn't that I didn't self-produce. So, and then she recommended me to other people, and she was one of the people who wrote a letter vouching for me that helped me get into the country in the first place. So that was very useful. Now they do it virtually, and it's really the same thing. You break out rooms, and you go in and you pitch your idea, and they give you feedback, and then you move on. So that's another tool that your followers might want to exploit. It's
You
called
said that's called writer producer speed dating.
Speed. The name of the company is TRU. I think that I don't know what it stands for. Theatrical Rights Unlimited or something. Let me look it up. Shared it on. I shared it on the chat. In the chat, truonline.org. TRU has Theatrical Resources Unlimited, and they're the ones who organize. They do a lot of other stuff.
Okay.
The ones who organize the writer producers. These I don't know if it's producer writer speed date or writer producer speed date, but they're the ones who do it.
Great. Wonderful. Yeah, definitely. I'll definitely look into that and share it. So should have had that air conditioning on. I forgot it has not happened in a while. And it's always on the remote ones. It's never can't remember if it happened in person once or not. Anyways, all right. So let me ask you this then. As we start to wrap things up, I usually end with three questions. What are you working on right now, writing wise?
I'm writing a musical biography, a historical musical about Felix Mendelssohn's, the composer, the classical composer Felix Mendelssohn's lesser known but equally talented sister.
Oh wow,
Fanny Mendelssohn. Her the musical is called The Other Mendelssohn, and the story of that is that she was just as talented as Felix. Some say even more talented than her brother, but because she was a woman, it was the 1800s. Her family wouldn't allow her to publish. The family wouldn't be able to survive the scandal, etc., etc. So I'm developing that musical with a woman named Christina Rosenhall, who's a Swedish woman. She's in Sweden. I've never met her either. We've been working on this for about a year, and I'd say, just about ready to do an initial table read. So we're trying to just massage the script a little bit to give it a better form, to just make it good enough for a table read, and then we'll proceed from there. That's one. I'm also working on I'm continuing to work on A Tale of Two with Luke Simnett, because that one, even though the book is done, there are maybe 4 or 5 songs that haven't been composed yet. The lyrics are all done, but Luke said, and very wisely, that we should probably see where the show is in terms of, we should see where we are in terms of the quality of the show before we start to write more songs. So I'm trying to get people to do a table read of that or something, to show it to some producers, so that producer can help develop the show. So I'd say that show should be ready. Well, I think both shows should be ready by the end of the year. I'm also writing very in the very early stages of developing a musical about Jack and the Beanstalk. Actually, that it's a children's musical. The libretto of that is done.
Oh, nice.
5 years ago. But, for one reason or another, I haven't found a composer for it. But I found the composer, again, through Facebook. And because we haven't really finalized anything yet, I don't want to say his name, but he's working on a sample song from it. And what I've heard so far, it's great. This is exactly what the show needs. So I'm hoping that turns into something more concrete.
Sure. How do you do a table read for a musical?
Well, I don't know the proper way to do it, but what I've been doing is you get a bunch of people in the room, a bunch of actors, friends, and you read the book scenes and you play the songs, the demo recordings when the songs are, so that they don't have to learn 16 songs for a table read. It's just, hey, can you help me out? It's not like, right, you're not hiring them.
So is the recording, is it the singing already part of that recording that you're playing as well?
Yes, yeah. So
Okay.
what
Got it.
normally happens is the composer will make demo recordings. Sometimes it's like one person doing 4 different characters.
Got it.
But so the book scenes, you read out the dialogue, and then when the time for the song comes, you just play the song.
Got it. Okay. All right.
I mean, ideally, if you had resources, if you had money, you could hire a bunch of people, let them learn the songs, get them all in a room together, and get backers, possible producers, sponsors to watch.
Sure.
I mean,
well, I just wasn't sure,
well,
just for table read purposes as opposed to stage readings. That's one thing. But I mean, like table read,
yeah.
I wasn't sure if it was just like, all right, we just read it. You don't get to hear the music. We're just going to read the lyrics, so you get the gist.
Sometimes I've done that actually.
Okay.
Just to see the viability, to gauge the viability or the suitability of a libretto. But it's always better if there's some kind of music. Sometimes you'll play. Oh, we don't have a recording. We just have this piano demo of what the song is going to sound like. So you just play that while they recite the lyrics, just so they get a feel for the whole flow of the show.
Okay. Yeah, because that's a topic that's never come up. I'm like, how do you do a table read for a musical?
And again, stress that I don't know if this is the correct way to do it. This is just the way.
Yeah, I don't know if you can say there's a correct way to do that either. So, where can people find your work?
You can check my website, Joel Trinidad. That's JoelTrinidad.com. There's samples of most of my scripts there, and yeah, I think that's the best way to find. You can also follow me on Instagram. I'm Joel Trinidad at Joel Trinidad 123. If my last name is not familiar, it's just the same as the country. That's what I always say. Yeah. So.
Well, that kind of answers usually my last question, which is, are you on the socials? Which means yes, you are. So we have your Instagram. Are there any others that you're on that you want to share? Or
I'm on Facebook at Joel.Laurel, Laurel.Trinidad. Laurel is my mother's maiden name. That's what in the Philippines. That's what is sometimes considered your second name. So Joel.Laurel.Trinidad. That's it. It's just Instagram and Facebook. I'm not very active on social media. I only made an Instagram account because people told me, you need that. You need that as your calling card. So I post stuff. I don't have a lot of followers, but it's there. I post what I'm doing there. So yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, Joel Trinidad, thank you for coming on to this episode of Playwright Spotlight.
Thank you for having me. I had a great time.
Thank you so much. Thanks for tuning into this episode of Playwright Spotlight. Again, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below, and share the show with your friends. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, be sure to leave a 5-star review and subscribe to the channel. And in the meantime, and until we see each other again, keep writing.